This was bad. Wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it was still bad. Hello, everybody. Ketchy1383 with Ketchy Gaming. And today I wanted to go over the Borderlands movie that was just recently released. So, the movie stars Cate Blanchett as Lilith, Kevin Hart as Roland, and I guess probably one of the more notable characters being Tannis, being played by Jamie Lee Curtis. And I guess actually Jamie Lee Curtis would be the more prominent name than Tannis there. And then they have the other characters just sort of filled out by people I've never even heard of before. And I guess I should mention that Jack Black does play Claptrap in this. So I'm just going to cut to it. This movie was bad. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it was bad. And if you're a Borderlands fan, you're not going to like this. So I guess to sort of establish my credit, I have played Borderlands 1, 2, the pre-sequel, and part of 3. I got to the villains in 3, and I was like, this is just the worst villain ever, and stopped playing. So a lot of the problems start right off the bat by pretty much only choosing cherry-picked aspects of the games and incorporating that into the plot. And then just completely obliterating everything else in the game. On top of that, the casting, although, Cate Blanchett is an Oscar-winning actress, so is Jamie Lee Curtis, if I remember correctly. Not only were these characters miscast, but I for whatever reason, I don't know why they went with way older actresses for the actual characters that play them. And then there's Kevin Hart, who plays Roland, who seems to be a little bit on the short side for the role as well. But he, oddly enough, doesn't do his usual comedic routine. He actually kind of plays it seriously. I mean, yes, there's jokes every now and then, but it's not like you've seen him in other movies. Like, the most, I guess, recent thing I can think of seeing him in is the Jumanji movies. Let's just go with the first one because the second one was absolutely awful. But they start off really, really wrong with a whole entire made-up prophecy that was never in the game about a chosen child of Pandora coming to open the vault. And then starting off on a space station where Kevin Hart's character Roland saves Tiny Tina, which they just obliterated her backstory altogether, and not to mention she went from supporting character that you spend only an hour with, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less, depending on where you are, to making her front and center in the movie, eliminating her backstory altogether of having her parents killed by a psycho, and the players coming in and helping her get revenge on said psycho. Not to mention, she wasn't even introduced until Borderlands 2. Instead of just sticking with, let's say, the first game and working from there, they decided to incorporate characters from all the other movies as well. Heck, they don't even use Mordecai or Brick, but they use Krieg, who was actually even a DLC character in the second game. And they put him prominently in this movie. I mean, the guy could have pulled off playing as Brick. I don't expect him to cast people meeting the, body proportions of the characters in the game. That's just not going to happen if you're going to do a live action. But I kind of got the impression that the guy had some CG plastered all over his body as well, to give his muscles more definition than what they probably would have. But the other problem is Lilith isn't a vault hunter. She's on a totally different planet altogether. And a owner of a corporation, Atlas, pays her, because she's a bounty hunter, to go to Pandora to rescue his daughter, who he's claiming to be Tiny Tina. Now, it's been a while since I played the games, and my lore isn't all that great with it. But this is already not even remotely sticking with it. Instead of just sticking with what was already established, they decided to do their own entire thing. And then this was written and directed by Eli Roth. He's had a couple of prominent movies, but most of his work I haven't even heard of. and it feels like he wanted to do his own thing and not stick with what was in the game instead of doing what he should have done, having the first four original characters start off on Pandora on the bus as vault hunters instead of doing this whole entire thing where Kate Blanchett is a hesitant protagonist with, I might add, mommy issues as well. Oh, and I might add that she doesn't know she's a siren at this point in time, even though at the beginning of the Borderlands game, she knows she's a siren. With the obvious plot that Lilith was going to turn into a siren by the end of the movie. At least for anybody who's played the games, I guess that's an overwhelming majority of people probably even heard of Borderlands, let alone played the games. So they maybe thought they could get away with that. And don't get me wrong, I actually had really low expectations for this movie, considering after I found out who was being cast, and then also learning that this movie's been in development hell since 2015. But I didn't expect it to, be lower than what it actually was in terms of its overall quality and presentation. And I guess Kate Blanchett's acting is fine, and the actress who plays Tiny Tina, there's no way that she was going to be able to duplicate her mannerisms, at least not under Eli Roth. I don't even know if she even played the game or even watched anything with the character when she has any dialogue. They just sort of made her act funny or quirky at times. We're like, yeah, that's good enough for Tiny Tina. And this whole entire thing where Krieg actually sort of imprints on Tiny Tina, kind of on the creepy side, just a bit. I mean, they have a line in the movie that he's more like her brother at that point in time. And then there's actually parts when, about halfway through the movie, Tiny Tina maybe at one point does do the thing where she has like the explosive rabbits, more or less referring to the game. When she had the bunnies with the rockets blow up the train tracks. But then later on, I guess they decided that explosions were just too hard, and they eventually gave her a gun and had her engage in physical combat, breaking some guy's neck in the middle of a hallway. I mean, considering Tiny Tina is pretty much a noodle in the game, and this actress isn't exactly all that big, it's not exactly believable for Tiny Tina to be snapping anybody's neck. And the other thing is, everybody in this movie, and I mean everybody, never runs out of ammo. No one ever reloads in this game whatsoever. There's not one shot of anybody reloading. Kevin Hart just blasts away with a rifle that he has and a pistol and never ever once reloads. Same for Lilith. She just has this weird sidearm that she constantly shoots and has way more bullets than it should have and never reloads. I don't know if they're being self-aware and making it like action movies of the 90s where they never reloaded, but I think people are more or less conscious of that at this point in time, that it was a little weird that they just didn't reload ever. And Tiny Tina constantly had explosives and never ever seemed to run out. And at one point, pulling out an explosive bunny to give to Roland so he can use it on a bunch of psychos. Not indicating where she kept this bunny at any point in time. She just pulled it out of nowhere. On top of that, the overall presentation, at times, you can tell that they were like on some sets, but later on in the movie, particularly when they're opening the vault, they were on a really, really bad green screen. Like, you could tell they were on green screen, and it was excruciatingly noticeable that the background was really bad CGI. On top of that, it took place in some kind of weird valley instead of on the side of a mountain like it did in the original game, and I don't remember or maybe that was the second game. I don't remember exactly, but it took place in a weird place, and the gate was smaller than what it actually was in the game. And it was completely underwhelming. I mean, there were some neat parts in terms of the visuals here and there, but it didn't really capture the Pandora sort of feel or look. And their wardrobes were kind of there, but not quite there. So they gave like this really bad impression of them being crappy cosplayer versions of the characters they're trying to be when they were acting them out. I don't know. My thoughts are really scattered because I'm trying to get as much of the movie down as I could. And the only reason why I went to go see this because it was a video game movie, and I figured it'd just be like an avenue with my prediction that video game movies might be a little bit more prominent in the future. But I'm not entirely sure at this point, to be honest. So let's just draw this to a close. So it's not Borderlands. It's a story that someone wanted to tell, but they used Borderlands as a vehicle to try and tell it because they knew they had an audience of people that are like, "Oh, Borderlands, let's go see it." It's similar to the Halo TV series. It's someone else's story wearing the Halo suit for in Halo's case. Like this is similar. It's just a story wearing Borderlands dressing. A story that is just predictable and absolutely just boring to boot because I couldn't wait for this movie to end. And they had Jack Black as comic relief with Claptrap. I mean, some of the stuff was hit or miss, most of it miss. But they didn't have him do any of the proclivities that Claptrap is known for, like, I'm dancing, making a reference to that. They didn't even do that. Hell, they didn't even have the guardian angel in the movie whatsoever. The sets could be okay at times, but there were times when it was just obviously some kind of CG and it was bad CG combined with some bad green screen. And none of the characters acted like the characters they were supposed to be acting like. They, I guess, gave it their best college attempt to make them like that, whoever wrote the story, but they didn't even come close to it. I think maybe the one who came closest was probably Kevin Hart, oddly enough. But everybody else, particularly Lilith, was played way too seriously. So was the plot in general. In this case, it's clearly just really bad writing. And I know it's not doing well, and I don't expect it to do well, and I don't think there's going to be a Borderlands 2, so Kevin Hart doesn't have to worry about Roland dying anytime soon. Anyways, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Have a good one.